Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Zero B Zero T podcast. This is episode 11, and for this episode, I had to bring on a special guest. He is well known on this server for being for doing all types of stuff, all types of shenanigans. He's known as being the Zero B's totem. He is the totem, and yeah, his name is FlamingBird101. What's up, FlamingBird?
Hello.
How you doing today, man?
That's a good question. I don't even know.
Of course. All right, then I guess we'll just get started then. So let me just ask you the question that I always ask. So how did you start on Zero B? Like, how do you find it? How do you start playing? When?
Oh, that's a really fun story to tell. So, April 12th, I got this random video in my recommendations. It was from Salcy1, who was somebody I watched back then, and it was his final day live stream of his Anarchy server. So I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. This was on April 12th, 2020. So then the 13th, I'm like, alright, so this sounds kind of fun. If I can't play that, then maybe I'll play like 9B9T, because I heard about that. I knew about 2B, but I wasn't waiting in queue.
Yeah.
So after that, I played on there for a bit. I started going down the negative Z highway. I made it 8 million blocks overworld, or 1 million nether, and then kept going for a little bit after that. But then eventually somebody started advertising a Twitch stream in chat. It was a guy by the name of Scootons. So I went to this stream because they said they were giving out free kits, and I thought it would be funny to tell them I was really far out. Try to get them the kits. Well, of course, the kits weren't on 9B. They were on 0B because there was an active dupe on 0B, and that was the whole gimmick.
Hmm.
So, eventually, I don't really remember how I got them, if you just asked or whatever, but I procured some kits on the server, and I met a player by the name of Jamoir, or Jamoir, and they took me out to their base, and we were just kind of chilling there, and it became just the two of ours' base,
Hmm.
and that's pretty much how I started.
Do you know what made him take you to his base, or was it just like on the
Oh,
fly? Like, oh yeah, you can come.
oh, I have no idea. I mean, it wasn't much of a base. It was a hole just dug into the side of a mountain,
Hmm.
and that was literally about it. I did most of the expanding of that hole.
Yeah.
Uh, don't take that out of context,
And
but
was
yeah.
did you have the dupe already? Were you duping there?
Yeah, for a while, I would have to use his dupe books and try to figure it out, because he was using a client called Aristoa, or Aristoi, and he was using it that way before I had good dupe books that were made.
Hmm.
And I used the module on that for a little bit to make them myself. I would name them Queeky, and I would just use those to dupe. But I would always rearrange them. I would never like add a bunch of books and then just keep making new ones. So because of that, like I lost a lot of heads and maps when I would try to dupe those, but like regular items were fine.
Oh yeah.
So good times of being new.
Damn. And when was this? This was
Oh,
early
this was like
2020?
April to May 2020.
Okay then. So, since you're like you're not that old compared to some of the other players, but a lot of people consider you an older player. Do you know why that is?
Well, I mean, if you joined the second quarter of 2020, like, you're pretty much an old player at this point. But, like, people consider me with the old players because not only do I hang out with a lot of them, but, like, I'm the guy that all of the old players know, but nobody seems to know why.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who knew me obviously knew me, but a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I recognize that name, but I have no idea why. And then I mention, I'm like, oh yeah, I ran the Zero B archive for most of 2021, and they're like, oh, you were that guy.
Yeah. So do you want to tell me how did that start? The Zero V Zero T archive?
So that was a project that started of mine in November. I created the server exactly 2 months before that, just as a testing server for whatever I needed. I opened it up and I'm like, because I was staff on Anarchy Links Hub and I wanted to help out Gaming Derp. So all the Zero B stuff just went in my server and then he would copy it onto his because I was really good at finding Zero B links because I was active in the community.
Hmm.
So that's pretty much that.
And
But that
like,
was already when I was kind of known.
yeah, and then it blew up a lot, right? Because I remember it being like, if you joined Zero B, you would join the archive just to like find groups and stuff or get world
Well, yeah.
downloads. That was like a really important tool to the community. I feel like, or like especially to the people that like history and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, and it was the fourth most popular Zero B Discord at one point.
Yeah, I would bet. All right then. So after you like got your start on the server, what did you do really?
So after I started, uh, one of the things I would do is I would go to spawn parties, and I got in contact with a bunch of great people, like old names that'll throw you back, Emrys Lee, Anonymous, Dexter Morgan. They were all part of a group called Team Clean, and I'm like, yo, this is cool. How do I get in this? And Dexter says, well, if you want to get in my group, you should inside the Imperials. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that doesn't sound hard. So I joined the Imperials Discord on the 7th of May. By the way, I remember all of these dates. Don't ask why, but it's just off the top of my head. I don't even have notes. But I just started building the highways, and then I finally joined them for real. And as long as you weren't a previous insider, any IGN could just get into the Imperials. Like, it was stupid easy.
Yeah, I bet. I remember they would get griefed all the time.
And what I went to the bases and I just started doing things, and after about 2 weeks, I was already Legate, which was the highest rank you could buy with Imperial Gold. And I met a lot of people, and again, more old names you'll know. Crazy Kev, also known as Sociobiology, Ty the Fire Guy, Chose 007, Aetherius even. He'll be
Yeah.
important. Remember that name later.
Yeah, there he is.
Who else? But yeah, a bunch of people. And even Mellow 2004, although he was not somebody you wanted to interact with back then.
Why?
2021, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, wait, why is that? Because I know uh, he's
I
like
don't
known
know.
for
He
being a
probably
cool
had an
guy,
anime. You
but
should probably interview him. He probably has like an anime character arc, but like he just all of a sudden became nice in 2021. I don't know what happened.
oh, so he used to
But
be like a meaner person.
yeah.
Ah,
But
I see.
getting off topic, but after about 2 weeks, Ty the Fire Guy just started taking me to like pretty much every Imperial base on Zero B because at that point I was pretty much trusted.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Oh, well, you didn't immediately grief a base in 2 weeks, therefore you must not be inciting." And I didn't really talk to Dexter too much about how I was inciting to the point where he thought that I just became an imp.
Yeah.
But then eventually, XERC from Team Costella somehow manages to get the main base for the Imperials on June 19th, and he griefs it. And I say, all right, today's the day the imp's going down. So I talk to Buster, and then he DMs me the same day, and it turns out he was inciting it, but he was there for the long con. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool, that's funny. But we blew that up, and I blew up a bunch of Imperial bases. And another one is just another base that Ty took me to called Outpost Times. Yeah, this ended up being Aetherius's personal base, so oops. I kind of sort of took a screenshot, which is now pretty famous, of me sitting on the throne with a shit ton of crappy 2020 clients activated,
Yeah.
saying I was the king and down with the imps. And Aetherius was not happy with me because I griefed his base. And that ends up becoming very important, but I blew up 5 imp bases, which was all of them.
Mhm.
And it was so bad that the imp branch for Zero B shut down 3 days later. Like, they just completely nuked the entire branch and started over.
That's crazy. So you were the imp's killer, really?
Not really. I nuked a branch. Spy Blockbuster was the imp killer, if there was any.
Yeah, but I mean they're still active to this day. It's
Yeah.
just kind of crazy, but imps is like that group that like no matter what you do to them, they always come back somehow, even though nobody likes
Yeah.
them.
As in, it's kind of an inside joke because every year on June 19th, I always go back to the Imperial Discord and fill out an application. And it's gotten to the point where Coparter and Brick Zebra just know it's coming.
Yeah, I bet. All
But
right,
yeah.
all right then. So since we were talking about Ethereus, I guess we could just get into it really. So I know that you have a lot of beef with Ethereus, right? And like
Yeah, kind of.
you and Ethereus have always been like back and forth, and you always try to like grief his stuff or something. So how did that start? Like, what made you not like Ethereus?
So first of all, I mean, me and Aetherius are on pretty good terms now. Like, I won't he doesn't invite me to any of his bases for obvious reasons, but like we're chill for the most part.
Yeah.
But back in the day, because of that, like, it ended up being really hard to do things, especially with higher people, because, like, Pixel and PR3 and some of the others, because they were all starting to become friends with Aetherius, so if I wanted to do some of the cool things or get into the cool bases, I couldn't because he didn't trust me.
Mhm.
And yeah, so eventually I got into Aranos,
Mhm.
and I guess it's about time I tell this story. So after I got there,
Wait, wait, wait. So before
oh,
you explain this, for all the people out there that don't know, can you explain what Oranos was?
oh yeah. So I mean, after the original Borderlo got griefed, which we'll get into that later, but
Mhm.
I was I didn't really have a home, so I was just a PR3 spawn base. And then I got invited to his big base, which was Oranos, which is his project, which he was taking pretty much all the old players to.
Mhm.
But a bunch of stuff was happening, but through some convoluted circumstances, Pixel, who's never supposed to be there, got in it through a bot that they left him there on, and he brought Mystic. So because of that, it ended up being the staging grounds for me, Pixel, and PR3's secret plan, which was the Super Illegals bypass, where PR3 crafted a plugin, and it would it had an almost perfect bypass to the anti-illegals, and it would just be a simple update if it ever got introduced. So we are preparing for this in October, and it was eventually implemented in December, but that's because Pixel and Aetherius flew out to a world download, and it turned out Obop was there with Obot. That's probably how Obot probably took him there now I think about it, but he left all of the Christmas legals and Thunder's E-Totem in a shulker there, so they stole it, and then they got their player data wiped. And then
Yeah.
after that, the anti-legals was just hastily implemented,
Yeah.
and then the bypass is active. And this was either the 12th or the 14th of December of 2020.
I see. And
So the
uh,
reason Aetherius, getting back to your original question, such a problem is because now Pixel really wanted Ether in this um Pixel and Kev and PR3, like they were all invited to this museum that Aetherius made, but I was not.
yeah.
And I had a big problem with this museum because not only did I used to collect illegals, but he was taking other people and putting really rare stuff at this museum that pretty much anybody could access.
Yeah.
So eventually, the player by the name of Ganhas, he got the cords from Crazy Kev from through some convoluted trade, and then for a few player heads, because he was a bigger collector than Cineo at the time of those, that I gave him that he didn't have, he gave me the cords to his museum, as long as I promised I didn't blow it up. So of course, what I did is, as Birdie and Spy were flying to an imp base that was nearby, I used that and I stopped at his museum, put an alt there, and blew it up.
Of course.
So Heather's like, okay, well, I made it kind of unclear. Like I was on an alt and I took PCP, and was something you'd never expect me to do, especially because I didn't like him.
Yeah.
I took him to grief the base, and he didn't like me. But then he was like, okay, whatever. Even though stuff got stolen, I'm just gonna start a second museum.
Mhm.
But the problem was is that Pixel told Aetherius behind my back about the bypass and was trying to put like bedrock and shit there.
Yeah.
And they were using the super illegals bypass to do that stuff, and they put it at his museum. And I found all this out through our group chat that we had of the bypass, and even though it was supposed to be us three, and the Pixel kept saying like, "Don't bring other people into it." Like it was so bad that Freely's almost knew about it because he just kept linking stuff.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, teleport to Freezing Bird right now.
Okay then.
Let me see if I can find it. Here we are. So this is Aetherius' second museum. Do you see this tree right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay
You see the
then.
bedrock at the top of that tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were placing shit at the top there and also in the museum. So, of course, when Pixel ended up leaking this museum to me accidentally, I flew out here with Alstrev, and then that was really the final checkmate of the whole feud I had with Aetherius. Like, now it's all pretty much over.
Mm-hmm. And like, you guys are chill now.
And another thing you might find interesting is this sign over here. The three people in the middle I knew were members, but look at the people on the edges. Do you know what bases they're also a part of?
What base? What base? Flaming Bird.
Waterloo.
Of course.
There is no corruption on Zero B, right?
No,
Yeah.
none.
Nope, none.
Of course, there's.
So that's why I have such a problem with Aetherius, is because ever since he became owner, he abused, he created a shit ton of illegal items, and people think Cineo did too, but that's kind of up for debate. But
Yeah.
Aetherius absolutely abused.
I mean, Ethereus did it
And
way more publicly than Sinio has.
so you know what? Now you get more unexpected visitors to your museum. And yes, I flew all the way out here just for this.
That's crazy. Wow, man.
So yeah, I'm gonna ask that you both leave this base, but thank you.
Okay. Hold up.
You can save the coordinates, feel free.
I'll do a quick cut right here. Okay, so we're back after seeing that crazy museum. Thank you, Flaming Bird, for showing the audience that.
Sure thing.
But yeah, okay, then I guess since we're done with those questions, the Ethereus questions, we can move on to some more stuff because you definitely have an interesting history on the server. So there's a base by the name of Bordlow that you're heavily associated with, and it's a big base. It's one of the bigger bases on this server, and well, at least the series of bases, since it's multiple. There's multiple Bordlows. So do you want to tell me and the audience the history about that?
Sure, and this isn't something that gets talked about a lot, because this base is kind of low-key. Like, we'll mention it, but the original Bordello started with, Curtis. He had a base, and he just built a few schematics there, and brought Mystic there to help build some roads and make it look nicer and get him some kits, but one day, I was at 2K2K, because, player by the name of Demptios put a bunch of heads there.
Yeah.
I was showing people that in the illegal furnaces, and I was like, yo, come here. And a guy named Curtis TP'd me, and I'm like, yo, nice OG username. He's like, thanks. But he eventually takes me to his base, and I'm like, whoa, this place is cool. And he's like, yeah, he's like, he doesn't have a name yet. I'm like, okay, that's cool then. And he was like, no, 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 like, please, 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 please never leak this. And I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna leak this shit, okay? So, finally, he names it Bordello, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Yeah, eventually I find out he was trying to say Bordeaux, which is a city in southwestern France, but that got corrupted somehow, and now we have Bordello, and that name stuck. And that base lasted from the 4th of May to the 25th of July, when Greasy Fork griefed 4 bases in one day thanks to the Nickfin leaks.
Yeah.
So, after that day, I have to think about this for a second. Everybody took a break for a bit, and then eventually another base started. It was a lot further out, and being the very original person that Curtis is, named it Bordello 2.
Wow.
So, and then that got griefed. And I say griefed rather lightly because it wasn't griefed very publicly, and only one person ever knew about this grief because it was only allegedly leaked.
Yeah.
So a third base was started, named Bordello 3, which is in, again, another different place.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually, the second base was rebuilt, and then expanded upon,
Oh, really?
and then we're just kind of basing there because Goj quit, like, for reals.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting.
And that's pretty much the story of how we are today. It's really just a place for Curtis and Nickfin to build all their schematics.
Yeah.
But I build some pretty original things at those bases.
Yeah, because I know it's well known for being like schematic town and like
Yeah.
having like hella schematics there and all that. But yeah, so then I guess we can move on to your history with illegals, because you're a collector, right? You collect stuff on the server.
Not really anymore. Um, let's see. I collected for a while, and then I kind of stopped. Because I would trade a lot, and I was big into Roast Marshmallow's trading Discord. Again, another name you'll know if you're an old player.
Mhm.
And the only thing I really keep around these days is my totem, which looks like this.
Yeah,
And
the E
I
totem.
call this the third cutest totem because I'm the cutest totem, and Spy Blockbuster's the second cutest totem. We all know that for the Flaming Bird lore, but yeah, other than that, I don't really have anything rare, and people just sometimes give me stuff,
Yeah.
and I keep it all at my public group museum that I invite all my friends to so that it'll never get leaked. So that's
Mhm.
pretty much me with collecting. Okay, I was joking there, by the way.
Yeah. All right then. So, uh, shoot.
Chew?
Okay. Here's the question I'm gonna ask you right now. Who is your best friend on this server?
Okay, and here's an answer I'm going to give you right now.
Mhm.
I don't really have a best friend. I mean, for a while it was B11. Like, B11 was just my bestie.
Yeah.
But, like, he's kind of gone now. I mean, we still talk about RuneScape. But other than that, there are a lot of people. Obviously, Curtis and Mizuki are up there, who's
Yeah.
also known as Nick Finn. Who else should I mention? Amrit was always funny. I wouldn't call him my best friend, but I always liked him because he was funny.
Mhm.
Pixel was until he betrayed me with the whole museums thing. And of course, I can't not mention Jamoir and PR3, Rock's DLC.
Yeah. All right then. Since you brought up Nick Finn, and I know you're a good friend of his, I'd like to ask you why he changed his name. Cause a lot of older players think that he quit. Just like in my Discord today, people were talking about how he quit, but he's still an active player, right? So do you know why he changed his name?
So one of the things you'll learn about the 2020 and 2021 Zero B community is that anything that Pixelated Braden and Aetherius say will go to a large majority of the community. So because Pixelated Braden did not like Nick Finn, he would tell everybody about what Nick Finn did and basically tried to cancel him. He knows what he did was a mistake, and he's not doing it again, but he changed his name so that he'd have a much lower profile on the server,
Yeah.
and also to get rid of a lot of the hate.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
Cause he just likes building and stuff.
yeah.
All right, I want to ask you this question. This is a more original question. I don't really ask it, but what do you think of the people in power of Zero B? Because recently, and I hope that more people have been noticing this, but there's definitely people on Zero B, even though it's just a Minecraft server. But there's people in Zero B that are more in power than others, like the friends of the owners, and you'll see them at like all the crazy bases, like Frank, Zach, and Pritzker. So, what do you think of just those people in power in general?
Let's start with the owners.
Mhm.
Obop owns the server, so he can do whatever the fuck he wants,
Yeah.
and I don't give a shit. Cineo also helps pay for the server, so he could be the most abusive admin in the world, and I wouldn't really care too much because, again, he's helping a lot with the actual server, so
Yeah, that's fair.
it doesn't matter too much. Like, I mean, I'd be mildly annoyed if he stole my totem and started spreading it, but, like, at the same time, it's just a block game.
Yeah, and he's the reason that this server, or he's like one of the main reasons this server stays up. He pays for it.
But the I do have an issue with people like Pritzker and Franzak because not only have they gotten into Waterloo, but like they were also colluding with again, those people like Pixel and Aetherius, I don't know which ones invited them there, but
Hmm.
they were they definitely have more influence than others, and it definitely isn't fair.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the thing is, I think people put too much blame on Sinio, though. I don't really think he's that abusive, and there's not a lot of hard proof that he's the one abusing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hard proof of Aetherius making illegal items, but there really isn't with Sinio. So we have to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Hmm.
As annoying as it is, like, Sinio's what I call a really good scapegoat, because with all the problems that Zero B has, because he owns the server and he's not Obop, who has a clean track record, it's easy to pin the blame on shit, especially because he collects items.
Hmm.
But at the same time,
I mean,
he definitely could be doing things.
yeah, I mean, I understand that because, like, besides the Waterloo incident that happened recently, which I always talk about, I don't know much about anything else that he's really done that's
Th-
super abusive.
then again, look at Imperator's base on 2B. The same
Yeah,
thing happened. But then again, it was a backdoor and not an owner.
yeah, but I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I mean, according to them, it's they built it by hand, but I don't know how true that is because it looks the exact same as the OG. That's getting off
And
topic.
Anyway, I understand too that Pritzker is a good builder,
Mm.
and half of me wonders, because Pritzker is one of the only people who can actually build on Zero B, if that's the reason why he's being used so much by these owners, but I digress.
Yeah, but then at the same time, there's people like Kleinback, or I don't know how you pronounce his name, and Frank Zach. And I mean, besides them being cool players, which they are, they're like really liked on the server for some reason. And I mean, I'm not really sure why, to be honest. I mean, they're chill, but they've never done anything crazy, and they're always at these like crazy bases like Waterloo, and I just don't get it. But I mean, I'm not trying to be a hater, but I'm just pointing it out, you know. Um, So yeah, okay. I'm gonna ask you, what do you think of the current state of the server? Which I know we just kind of talked about, but like just in general.
Um, I think this is a really concise way to describe it. I play a lot of Geometry Dash now, and I play a lot of other servers.
Hmm. Okay,
Yeah,
that's it.
like, I think the implications of that are pretty clear. The state of the server is one that I don't want to be playing on.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, there has been a little bit of a like resurgence in players recently. Yeah,
Yeah, the number one issue with Zero B is there's nothing to fucking do anymore.
yeah, that's true. I feel like
Like,
players don't
I
take
don't care about
initiative.
the illegal inflation. Like, eventually the things that are common will become common, and the things that are rare or obscure will stay that way. Like, that's happened before, but the main issue with Zero B is that there's nothing to do anymore.
Yeah,
Like, there's no events, there's no things to look forward to,
it's definitely gotten very repetitive, and it's like nature. Like people don't take
and the maps are
initiative
broken.
to do stuff. Are they
Don't get
really?
me started on the maps.
Yeah, maps are always like really dumb on this server. You gotta like build over them. Did they fix that yet? Where you have to build over them, or is that still an issue?
Oh, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the fact that if you take a bunch of maps, like a stack, you put it in the middle of a crafting table, you take 8 stacks of paper, you put it around it, and you just keep hitting Q on the new crafted map, it'll create a new ID, which is a vanilla mechanic, but you can abuse the fuck out of that to just reset the maps in a few hours.
Oh.
Like, the server needs to update to 120 to fix that.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Oh, I was actually gonna ask you that. What would you think if the server updated to 1.20, considering that 2B did now, and I feel
I,
like
I think it would be really interesting.
yeah,
I think for the most part, we just get a bunch of new blocks.
I think it's the next state like step that Zero B should take if it wants to be like stay relevant, because all these
Yeah.
servers are updating to 1.19 and 1.20 now,
Well,
and I
yeah,
mean,
when Obop says that his server is just a crappy SMP, like he can't be more right. It really is.
mhm. And it's like I don't know if he wants, if they want people to continue like enjoying Zero B how it's been enjoyed for the last years. I think they should really consider updating the server, which I don't know if they have been doing or not. But yeah. And okay, I'm gonna ask you one more question. So, what do you think of, no, what is your favorite memory on Zero B?
Oh gosh. I mean, I don't want to just be like, I have no fucking idea, even though that's true.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it could just be a memorable moment. It doesn't have to be your best. It could be your worst memory if you remember it, or something like that. Just
most
something.
memorable moment was posting checkmate on the Zero B Reddit with a picture of me and Austrov at the museum.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I remember that.
I got so many DMs that day. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a lineup of more than 10 DMs when I woke up
Yeah,
that day.
that's funny.
And yeah,
That's it.
that's all I can think of.
Well, okay then, Flaming Bird. So, um, unless there's anything else you want to talk about, is there?
I have a few questions for you.
Okay, shoot, go for it.
So recently there's been a little bit of controversy with your podcast because they're saying that the players that you're not inviting, say the players that you are inviting aren't recognizable. Can you give a little bit of insight onto why you're inviting newer players and allowing them to talk in your podcast?
Okay. All right. So, for the people that want to know why I'm inviting newer players, or as some people would like to say, NNs, to the podcast, is because they're not. Just because you don't know them, doesn't mean that they don't have an interesting history. Like, like Jack on the Craft. You know, I brought him on. I didn't even know him, and he had one of my favorite podcasts ever, and that's because he had such like a cool history that like I never would have known about, because he's not like that well known of a player like compared to other players, and also because I feel like even though a lot of big namers have interesting history, they're always like intermerged with each other, so you always kind of start hearing the same thing over and over again. And these like less known or newer players, they have like history that's like, it's like fresh history. It's like nobody really knows about it. So I'd like to bring them on here, cuz just to hear the opinion of a casual 0B player that's not some, oh, I've been playing for 5 years. I've done all this. Um so yeah, that's why I've been bringing lesser known players or newer players on here. And the people that don't want to watch it don't watch it. I mean, nobody's forcing you to. But yeah, that's my
The
answer.
other main question I have for you is what's the biggest thing that you've gotten from this podcast so far?
The biggest thing,
What have you gotten out of interviewing people?
besides the joy of it and now the attention, because there's definitely some attention because of it. Um, I think my favorite part of doing this podcast is when people like show me cool bases or bring me gifts and stuff. And it's not to be like narcissistic, but it's nice when people show you, like, especially like the base that you just showed me. I feel like if it wouldn't have been for this podcast, I probably wouldn't have ever seen that. So
Well, yeah, obviously.
yeah, exactly. So that's probably my favorite thing about doing this, that people kind of trust me more. And because before this podcast, a lot of people didn't trust me because I had definitely griefed a lot of bases and stuff, and so people would never trust me. They'd be like, "Oh, nah, man, you can't come to my base." But yeah, thanks to this podcast, more people trust me, and if you do trust me with your base, I'm not gonna grief it. Yeah, but I would definitely appreciate checking it out and stuff. Yeah.
All right.
So is there?
That's all for me.
That's all for you, and that's all for me. So is there anything you want to tell the community before you go out?
I am the cutest totem. No other totem is cuter than me.
That's crazy. All right, then that's it. So yeah, thank you, Flaming Bird, for being a great guest on the podcast. Yeah, man.
Subscribe to the cutest totem.
Yeah, you have a channel?
Yep, I have a YouTube channel. I've got a Discord. You can DM me at opcube, OPCUBE,
Yeah.
and
You can message
yeah.
me with that stuff like after we're done with this, and I'll put it in the description. So yeah, go check the description. You guys can see his YouTube channel and his Discord and stuff if you guys wanna go check that out. But yeah,
All right.
thank you for being a great guest, and thank you guys for watching. There will definitely be more podcasts coming soon with more big namers since people are starting to hate. But yeah, thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.